I'm delighted to say Martin Lipton is with us this morning to talk a bit more about this. Martin, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
I'm very well, thanks.
What do you think about what's the Pochettino story now after last night?
Well, funny I knew. Look, it was really interesting because I thought for an hour they were absolutely outstanding, PSG. Mbappe showed that he is the new king of world football. I thought he was absolutely magnificent, scaring them rigid. They had a good game plan that seemed set up. They were taking them apart on the counter. They were going to win the match 2 or 3-0, it seemed. And then Donnarumma has his moment and they collapse. Now, is that because players panic or because the manager panicked? Did the manager, not react to the situation? Sometimes it can happen. I mean, if you remember, it wasn't that long ago, the boot was on the other foot with Pochettino against Ajax, with Spurs in that semi-final when they were dead and buried and pulled it round. Sometimes things just happen out of the control of any manager almost, that you can't prevent players discovering lead in their boots. And defensively, I mean, they were all shocking goals, weren't they? None of them should have been conceded. And can the manager be blamed for a series of staggering individual errors where players' heads go?
I don't know. That's the thing. Like, I guess that's why we have shows like this, to kind of tease it out and wonder aloud about it. But I guess from Pochettino, in his defence, he will say that if I was building this team, then I would have had Mbappe in my team, but I may not have had Neymar and Messi with him at the same time. One or either of them, sure, but that trio, maybe when things are going against me, I would like somebody who is, a slightly harder worker, a bit more available for the outballs, a bit more, just a different player to help release Mbappe. And perhaps that's his defence when it comes to whatever job is coming next, because it feels like this has now run its course at PSG.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see him being there next season. We know they want Zidane desperately. Always have done, and I think it was going to come at some point sooner rather than later. I mean, there's a danger now that Pochettino doesn't see out the season, that they decide to can him. And if they do, I think he'll be happy to go away. I don't think he's ever been content there. He wanted to go to a team where, like Spurs, to a degree, he wanted to win because he's not won anything at Tottenham. That was important for him, no question about that. Well, he's won the league a couple of times. But what he did want to do was to be able to build a team, as he did at Tottenham. And he's not been able to build a team. He's been given the players that he has to play. And yet, it's very hard if you're a manager to say, oh, no, I don't want Mbappe, no, I don't want Neymar, I definitely don't want Messi. You can't say that. But you probably should be able to say in your own head, I don't want them all. And that's the issue. I don't think any manager would want them at this stage in their careers, as it were. Yes, you want Mbappe at any point. He's fantastic. But Messi is not Messi as was. He's living on faded glories. He's still a talented player, but when you have to play a player who's not delivering, see Manchester United, Cristiano Ronaldo, for a direct comparison, closed brackets, and Mbappe, who seems, Neymar, who seems less than committed, then at times you're playing with 9 men. And when it mattered yesterday, when the heat came on, they were a couple of players short on the pitch.
Well, what's interesting is that Pochettino has maybe tried to take control of that situation at times this season, like the Lyon game earlier in the year when Lionel Messi was visibly upset to be taken off at that point. You'd wonder if the more Pochettino tried to push against this, the more the hierarchy pushed down on him.
When, Nasser Al-Khelaifi has said we're going to spend this money on Messi, it wasn't for him to sit on the bench, was it? Leonardo is his master's voice. He passes the messages on to Pochettino. He's been told in no uncertain terms that you have to play these players. That's why we paid so much money for them. Basically, you're not the manager. You're the bloke who writes out the team sheet. That's what it comes down to.
We were talking with Graham Hunter yesterday, and he was saying that Real Madrid definitely were very interested in Pochettino in the past and would want to finally consummate that relationship, and that Ancelotti felt it like a little bit of a stopgap anyway. And sure, weren't they going to more than likely, it seemed like more than likely they were going to go out last night, and that would have been handy for Florentino Perez. There's the successful Paris Saint-Germain manager who was leaving them and the best players in the world to come to us. It's a big coup. Now we've just beaten them. It certainly diminishes somewhat the possibility of him ending up at Real Madrid. It doesn't end it, obviously, but there's a good chance Ancelotti gets another year off the back of something like this. So again, they could get spanked in the quarterfinals, and we all have a different opinion on that. But where now do you think Pochettino is more likely to end up next season? Is it more likely Manchester than Madrid?
I think so, but it's interesting because Perez has always had this strange thing whenever he's been there, and Real Madrid have not liking the most successful managers in many ways. You go back to the turn of the century, and they really were desperate to get rid of Del Bosque, even though he won them 2 Champions League crowns. You know, they've always simply wanted to sack Ancelotti from the moment he got there. Both his spells in charge, even though he keeps delivering trophies, it's rather odd. But then again, that's Real Madrid. Perez wants a trophy manager. He wants to have a nice, bright, shiny thing to point to. Look, I've got that. But suddenly that lustre has gone off Pochettino. It would appear in the eyes of the fans on the basis of this. Now, I think actually he's a really talented manager. But does he fit Real Madrid? You know, remember he was very close to there at the end of, I think it was 2018 season when he stayed at Spurs. And probably he thinks now he should have gone. You know, he's one of those would have been the right time to go when he stayed on. And, you know, I maybe it's just not meant to be for him to go to Real Madrid at any point. Where he does go, though, is less clear. I still think United's a viable option, but there seems to be hints and insinuations that Ten Hag is more preferred at this stage. It's a bit odd, isn't it? The whole thing seems strange. And Pochettino's a bit of a crossroads in his career. His next move has got to be the right move. I genuinely believe, and this is just an opinion from me, that when Tottenham appointed Nuno last summer, it was because they thought Pochettino would be available before Christmas.
Wow, I didn't realise that at all.
I'm not saying it's just a feeling I have. I'm not saying it's true. I just get that sense that Tottenham thought that he would be available. Nuno was a stopgap. He wasn't on a particularly long-term contract. And then they had to move early when it all started to go horrifically wrong. And Pochettino wasn't available when they thought he might be. And then they've made the decision they've made. And not a bad one at all. But I'm just saying that, you know, it could well have been if events had been different. We know last summer that Pochettino did want to go back to Tottenham and that Tottenham were interested in him. That
was my question. Would the Levy-Pochettino relationship have recovered to a point where they could work together progressively into the future?
Yeah, and there's no doubt about that. Look, I think there was a feeling that in an ideal world they'd have given Pochettino a 6-month sabbatical rather than sack him when he did go. And that's just not viable in football these days. There was a sense that it had run its course in that incarnation, but that it was a relationship that could be rekindled with the same fervour and passion in the future.
That's like there's a deep love affair there, which means Pochettino might find it difficult to go to Manchester and compete against that team. But look, I guess, you know, there will be many inducements.
All fair in love, war and football, isn't it?
Yeah,
really?
And the making him the second or third highest paid manager in world football will probably ease his pain as he sleeps on his bed of money at night. But he doesn't seem like he's particularly motivated by money, so I don't want to stress that too much. There's a couple of other things I wanted to talk to you about. The Antonio Conte experience is wild. It is a roller coaster, and I don't know if we've had you on since his press conference where he was like, you know, I've lost 4 out of the last 5 games. Maybe I'm not good enough. We definitely were thinking this sounds like kind of end game, a brinkmanship, and it was before the Chelsea game. It was like, or before the City game rather, and and then the City performance is so spectacularly brilliant, and then the next performance is awful, and there's another one in the middle of that in the cup, and you're like, what is going on here? And then they turn around again. What is going on here?
Well, first of all, I think it's pretty clear that Antonio Conte wears his heart on his sleeve. The problem is he likes to sort of conduct open heart surgery in full public view without anaesthetic, which I don't think does anyone any favours, but that's part of him. He's always been that sort of manager. What he thinks, it seems, is that these players aren't capable of repeating performances with a 3-day break. But if you give them a week to work on them, they'll listen to instructions. So when they've had a proper time working with Conte, they've tended to go out and win. Now, last week they went 4 days, I think, between. They were Tuesday. They got beat by Middlesbrough. They had basically a week to prepare for Everton. Turned up on Monday. They had a full week before the City game. So when they have a bit more time, they tend to perform. So on that basis, they should be okay on Saturday because they've had 5 days to get ready for United. But they are inconsistent, even by Tottenham standards this season. They are so up and down. It's like they're bipolar, isn't it? You know, they really can't have any level of certainty and equanimity. Maybe that's a byproduct of a manager who's so Vesuvio. I don't know. That maybe if he were a bit calmer, they would be less inconsistent. But we don't know. And one of the reasons that you've got to be honest about it is a lot of these players aren't good enough. You know, there's half a dozen players who are 2 or 3 who are absolutely top class, another 2 or 3 who are pretty decent, but quite a lot just aren't good enough, and they won't be there next season.
One of those who we definitely didn't think was going to be there next season and who hadn't looked like he was good enough for the last period of time to play in Conte's or in a Champions League competing team was Matt Doherty, but his form in the last couple of weeks has been excellent. And you think back to Victor Moses, that's obviously the example that we're drawn most comfort from here from
Kevin De Bruyne.
Our Republic of Ireland perspective.
Kevin De Bruyne is the comparison for Matt Doherty.
Well, I'm hoping the long term, range of outcomes include him, people going, wow, look what he did with Victor Moses. What's going on there? Why is he suddenly playing well?
If it is because he knows that Royal's not good enough. Emerson Royal is simply not good. The biggest waste of 25 million Spurs have ever spent. So Doherty's seen a chance there. He's playing on the right of a 5, which is much more natural. I think that's fair to say.
100%, yeah.
And he's been encouraged to do what he's good at, which is get forward and deliver. And the goal he scored against Leeds, he wouldn't have made that run 2 months ago. He wouldn't have made the run. He'd have been stuck on halfway. So he's been encouraged, and a couple of passes on Monday night. I think, blimey, that's the new Pirlo there at right back for Tottenham. I think that in reality, realistically, more likely is that he will be one of 2 right wing backs next season, and he'll play half the games, maybe slightly under half the games. He'll try but Royal will be the one that goes. As it stands at the moment, Doherty stays, Royal goes, they'll bring somebody else, and they seem to be really keen on Jed Spence, who's currently at Forest on loan from Middlesbrough, who's done really well in the FA Cup this season. They seem to really fancy him. And they've also looked at Lamptey at Brighton. But what you've got there with both of those is attacking wing-backs. So that gives you an indication of how Conte wants to play. And that style of play would appear suited for Doherty, because we've seen that in a system where he's given license to get forward and has been encouraged to do so and has gained confidence from doing so. And the other thing is that watching the games, the players are no longer scared to give him the ball. And I think for quite a while, they were a little bit fearful of giving him the ball.
Well, his form didn't follow on from what he was capable of. It was probably because he was playing as a right back, and he's just not a flat back 4 right back at the start. So Conte's planning for next season. Is it safe to assume that the open heart surgery, as wild a ride as it's been, will calm down over the next while, and that the next transfer window will be Antonio Conte's fingerprints with Paratici, and they're going to invest in his desire for a playing staff that fits the style of play that they knew he was going to bring when they signed him, and that actually the referendum, the seemingly match off referendum on whether or not he was going to be there next season, that's passed?
No, it'll be decided by what happens in the window. If they don't deliver, he'll go off. He'll explode. And he'll make it impossible to stay, because he will take them to the brink, and he'll just destroy the club in many ways, is what he does. I also think it's hugely important next summer for Kane's future. I think if Kane sees that they are serious and they're giving Conte the players he wants, that he will not push for a move. If it gets to the end of July, beginning of August, and they've not done enough, and they've wasted another 2 months of summer trying to get £3 million shaved off here and £500,000 shaved off there and an extra £2 million on the price for this one we're trying to get rid of, I think Kane will just say, that's it, forget it, I'm out of here as well. So they've got to satisfy both Conte and Kane. But if they do so, then you know that they're going to look like a harmonious squad with one unified sense of purpose, which is what they wanted all along. Big if, though.
Is that sense of purpose going to arrive on time for them to grab that top 4 spot? Obviously, Saturday is a hugely important juncture.
I think it's going to be difficult. I would say if they get 9 wins out of 12, that's 72 points, and that'll probably be enough. If you look at the fixtures, everyone's got to play each other. So Spurs have got to play Arsenal, West Ham, United. Arsenal have got to play United and West Ham. United have got to play, obviously, those two, plus Liverpool again. Spurs and Arsenal have both got to play Liverpool. United have got to play Chelsea. Arsenal have got to play Chelsea. There's a lot of games where points can be won and lost all over the place. If Spurs were to win if Spurs were to win on Saturday, that would give them real momentum, because you probably think that would kill off United's realistic hopes, because they played so many more games than the rest. It would then, you'd think, become a shootout between Spurs and Arsenal, and that rearranged match, which will be, I suspect, in that sort of second or third midweek in May, in that catch-up midweek window that the Premier League keep available, could end up being pivotal, but it actually could be decisive. I still think Arsenal just might shade it, but 12 games is a third of a season. It's a long, long way. And Tottenham look more cohesive now than at any point in the season.
It's going to be a very, very interesting race. There's one last thing I wanted to just flag. You're writing today in the paper about the Premier League and the presentation that they got around NFTs. It sounded like your instinct is that the Premier League are going to go and sell NFTs, but there were some dissenting voices who were wondering, is this a bit of a pyramid scheme?
Yeah, I think there's genuinely, this is why there's a 4-hour meeting, of which 3 3/4 hours was taken up with NFT. That shows you how significant the issue is. I know that some clubs think gung-ho, we've got to do this. It's brilliant. It's a you've got to do it. We can't not do it. No brainer. We've got to move ahead. Others are saying, well, what is it? How does it work? Can you reassure us that this is actually a viable concept? And there's another group who are saying, yeah, we understand that, but this isn't morally right. We're taking liberties. Now, I know that football clubs, particularly Premier League clubs, don't tend to take moral stances, but they have done over Ukraine over the last couple of weeks in a way that I wouldn't have imagined. And even clubs that have, shall we say, debatable owners have joined completely and totally in with this stance on Ukraine. I think it's more likely than not they are going to go for it. I would say 80% realistically. But I'd be surprised if it's agreed before the summer meeting. It might be done by the end of the month. There's 2 more Premier League meetings coming up this month, and one of those will basically be an NFT meeting. The other will be a strategic review meeting, which is only 18 months overdue. So it appears to be heading in that direction, but there are doubts. There is questioning. There are those who are reluctant to commit. And part of it is they've seen what's happened with some of the other NFTs that have disappeared. I'm reading today that the John Terry one has dropped 90% in value. It doesn't mean it won't bounce back. And if you look at crypto, it's gone up and down. Bitcoin value has oscillated wildly. But the stock market, goes down 3%, goes up 4% over the last few days. So we've seen that in other fields. But I do think there's a direction of travel there. I'm not entirely sold it's a great idea myself, but I'm old and past it and don't quite understand. Although it was explained to me that theoretically you could own, say, the Aguero goal on your machine, on your laptop, on your smartphone, or if you wanted to, on a little iPad you display on your wall at house and show all your mates. Look, that's I own that goal. But you don't own it outside of those specific NFT rights. I mean, you can't stop Sky showing it again.
No.
and anyone else can show it on from YouTube.
Yeah.
So you don't own it, but you do own it. It's very odd.
I was going to ask, which Premier League NFT are you most looking forward to spending your sweet Ethereum on?
Oh, there's been some big ones, I think. I've won an absolute howler, actually, to sum up football. I just some ridiculous moment that was worth laughing at. And there's been a few of those. Unfortunately, too many of them involve Spurs' defence, but let's not go too deeply into that.
Martin, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Martin Lipton from The Sun there, giving us some insight into that.